The greatest battle you will ever fight will not be against a visible enemy. It will not be against the person who fired you, the partner who left you, or the competitor who is trying to take your place. It will be against the voice in your own head that tells you to sleep in, to give up, to take the easy road, to compromise just this one time. You know this voice. It is the architect of every regret you have ever felt. It is the reason you are not where you want to be. You look in the mirror and you see potential, but you also see the wreckage of broken promises. You see the gap between the warrior you could be and the distracted, inconsistent person you currently are. We often romanticize the samurai as masters of external violence, men who could cleave an opponent in two with a single stroke. But we forget that before Miyamoto Musashi became the sword saint, before he was the author of the Book of Five Rings, he was a violent, uncontrollable, chaotic young man named Shinmen Takezo. He was a beast, driven by rage and ego, reacting to the world rather than mastering it. If he had stayed that way, he would have died in a ditch, forgotten by history. But he didn't. He engaged in a ruthless process of self-conquest. He realized that a sword is useless if the hand holding it is trembling with fear or shaking with anger. To survive 60 duels, he had to build an internal structure of steel that was stronger than any armor. He used the 7 virtues of the samurai, Bushido, not as a code of moral etiquette, but as a set of psychological weapons to slaughter his own weaknesses. He didn't practice these virtues to be a good person. He practiced them to become invincible. You are watching this because you feel that internal chaos. You feel the drift. You are looking for the structure that will turn your raw potential into kinetic power. I'm going to show you how Musashi used these 7 ancient principles to tame the beast within, and how you can use them today to conquer the only enemy that actually matters: yourself. But before we descend into the forge of the soul, I need you to make a decision. Most people consume content like they consume fast food, mindlessly, quickly, and with zero nutritional value. They watch a video about discipline and then immediately scroll to a video about cats. They are tourists in the land of self-improvement. Do not be a tourist. Be a pilgrim. If you are tired of the cycle of motivation followed by failure, if you are ready to build a code that actually holds up under pressure, then hit that subscribe button right now. This channel is a dojo for the mind. We do not deal in comforting lies or temporary hype. We deal in the cold, hard steel of truth. When you subscribe and turn on notifications, you are not just feeding an algorithm. You are making a contract with your future self. You are stating that you demand more from your existence than comfort and mediocrity. Join us. Let's sharpen the blade together. Subscribe now, and let's begin the work. The first chain Musashi forged to bind his chaotic nature was the virtue of Gi, or rectitude. In the modern world, we confuse this with justice or fairness. But for the samurai, and specifically for Musashi, Gi meant radical decision-making power. It is the ability to decide upon a course of conduct in accordance with reason, without wavering. Musashi saw that most men die because they are indecisive. They stand in the middle of the road, terrified of making the wrong choice, and because they do not move, they are crushed. You do this too. You hesitate to start the business, you hesitate to have the difficult conversation, you hesitate to cut out the toxic habit. You live in the gray area of maybe and tomorrow. Gi is the bone-deep understanding that there are no gray areas when the sword is swinging. There is only the strike or the death. Musashi applied Gi to his own mind by eliminating the gap between the decision and the action. If he decided to wake at 3 a.m. to train, he did not negotiate with his pillow. The decision was the action. To practice Gi is to stop lying to yourself about your intentions. It is the integrity to say, "I will do this," and then let that statement be as binding as a law of physics. When you possess Gi, you stop drifting. You become a vector, a force with direction and magnitude. You stop asking, "Should I?" and start saying, "I am." This rectitude is not about being self-righteous. It is about being self-aligned. When your thoughts, your words, and your actions are all moving in the exact same direction, you achieve a level of power that intimidates people who are fragmented and conflicted. This alignment leads directly to the second virtue, or heroic courage. We think of courage as the absence of fear, but Musashi knew fear intimately. You do not fight 60 men to the death without feeling the cold grip of terror in your gut. But Musashi's interpretation of you was not just about facing an enemy sword, it was about the courage to face reality. The greatest cowardice is not running from a fight, it is running from the truth about yourself. It is the cowardice of the man who blames the economy for his failure, who blames his parents for his anger, who blames his spouse for his unhappiness. That is a man hiding in a turtle shell of victimhood. Musashi stripped himself naked of excuses. In his solitude, living in caves, he had to confront the darkest parts of his own psyche, his loneliness, his arrogance, his mortality. You is the courage to look in the mirror and see exactly what is there, without flinching. It is the bravery to say, I am lazy, I am undisciplined, I am afraid. Only when you have the courage to diagnose the rot can you begin to cut it out. This is the heroic part of the virtue. It is easy to fight a stranger. It is terrifying to fight your own ego. Musashi forced himself into situations that broke his ego, wandering as a ronin, dirty, unkempt, hungry, prioritizing his training over his appearance or social standing. He destroyed the image of who he should be to find the truth of who he was. You must find the courage to kill the version of yourself that is addicted to the approval of others. That is the only way you will ever be free. This brings us to a virtue that seems paradoxical for a killer: gene or benevolence. How can a man whose profession is death practice benevolence? For Musashi, gene was not about being nice. It was about profound understanding and connection. To defeat an opponent, Musashi had to understand him deeply. He had to empathize with his fear, his desire, his strategy. He had to connect with the humanity of the other to exploit it. But internally, gene manifests as a form of stewardship over your own potential. Many of you are cruel to yourselves. You beat yourself up with negative self-talk, you deprive yourself of rest, you poison your body with junk, and then you wonder why you cannot perform. You treat a rental car better than you treat your own mind. Musashi treated his capacity for violence with reverence. He took care of his equipment, and he was the equipment. Gene is the understanding that you are a weapon that needs to be maintained. It is not self-indulgence, it is strategic maintenance. If you drive the horse until it dies, you walk the rest of the way. Musashi learned that true strength requires a balance of hardness and recovery. He practiced calligraphy, tea ceremony, and painting. These were not hobbies. They were acts of gene, ways to soften the spirit so that it would not snap under the tension of constant war. You must treat yourself with the benevolent authority of a strict but loving father. Demand excellence, yes, but provide the resources, the rest, and the respect required to achieve it. And right here, I need to pause. I need to break the fourth wall because I know exactly what is happening in your mind right now. You are nodding along. You are intellectually agreeing with me. Yes, rectitude, courage, benevolence, very good. But intellectual agreement is cheap. It costs you nothing. And because it costs nothing, it changes nothing. I want to know where the armor is cracked. I want to know which of these virtues is the missing piece in your puzzle. Is it GI? Are you paralyzed by indecision and lack of integrity with your own word? Is it you? Are you terrified of facing the truth about your current situation? Or is it gene? Are you burning yourself out with self-hatred disguised as discipline? I want you to go to the comments section right now. Don't wait for the video to end. Scroll down and type, "My missing virtue is insert virtue," and here's why. Be vulnerable. The comment section of this channel is not a place for judgment. It is a war council. When you write it down, you stop hiding. You admit the tactical weakness. And when you see how many others struggle with the exact same thing, you will realize that this is not a solitary confinement. It is a shared battlefield. Go ahead. Type, "My missing virtue is," and tell me the truth. I read them. I want to know who I am talking to. We move now to rei, or respect. In the West, we think of respect as politeness, saying please and thank you. For the samurai, rei was the acknowledgement of hierarchy and reality. It is the refusal to underestimate the world. When Musashi bowed to an opponent, he was not being friendly. He was acknowledging the lethality of the situation. He was respecting the danger. When you lack rei, you become arrogant. You think you can get away with skipping the preparation. You think you can show up late and still win. You think you are smarter than the market, tougher than the biology, superior to the process. That arrogance is the mother of all defeat. Musashi conquered his own mind by respecting the difficulty of the path. He respected the small details, the grip on the sword, the placement of the sun, the texture of the ground. He never felt he was too good for the basics. The moment you lose respect for the fundamentals, the moment you think you have graduated from the hard work, you are dead. Rei is the antidote to complacency. It is the constant, humble acknowledgement that you are always one mistake away from ruin. It keeps you sharp. It keeps you watching. It forces you to treat every interaction, every task, every person with a supreme level of attention. Do not walk through your life casually. Walk through it with Rei. Respect your time. Respect your potential. Respect the consequences of your inaction. Then there is Makoto, or honesty/sincerity. This is similar to GI, but deeper. GI is the decision. Makoto is the execution. It is the absence of deception. In fencing, a feint is a lie told with the body. But Musashi taught that even the feint must be true in its intent to cut. If you live a life of lies, lying to your boss about your work, lying to your partner about your feelings, lying to yourself about your happiness, you fracture your psyche. You have to keep track of the lies. You have to maintain the mask. This drains an enormous amount of energy. A liar is always exhausted. A man of Makoto has infinite energy because he has nothing to hide. He is one piece. Musashi's strategy was transparently brutal. He didn't rely on tricks. He relied on timing and void. He stripped his life down to the absolute essentials, outlined in his Dakoto, the way of walking alone. Do not seek pleasure for its own sake. Do not hold on to possessions you no longer need. These were acts of Makoto. He was sincere about his mission. If something did not help him become a better warrior, it was discarded. Ask yourself, how much of your life is a performance? How much energy are you wasting trying to maintain an image that isn't real? Makoto is the sword that cuts through the bullshit. It is the freedom of being exactly who you are, without apology and without pretense. When you stop performing, you start living. The sixth virtue is meo, or honor. This is the most misunderstood word in the English language. We think honor is about reputation, about what other people say about us. That is vanity. For Musashi, meo was an internal standard that had nothing to do with the crowd. It was the pact he made with his own soul. If you were the last man on earth, would you still make your bed? Would you still train? Would you still hold yourself to a high standard? If the answer is no, then you have no honor. You only have vanity. You are performing for an audience. Musashi spent years in isolation. There was no one to clap when he perfected a strike. No one to cheer when he meditated for hours in the freezing rain. He did it for meo. He did it because to do less would be an insult to his own existence. Honor is the voice that forbids you from lowering your standard just because no one is watching. It is the refusal to be mediocre in private. It is the understanding that you are always watching yourself, and that audience of one is the only one that matters. When you possess meo, you become incorruptible. You cannot be bought, you cannot be shamed, and you cannot be swayed, because your validation comes from an internal source that the world cannot touch. Finally, we reach chu, or duty and loyalty. Traditionally, this meant loyalty to a lord or a daimyo. But Musashi was a ronin. He had no master. So to whom was he loyal? He was loyal to the way. He was loyal to the craft. He was loyal to the path of mastery itself. This is the virtue of persistence. It is the ability to stay on the path when it gets boring, when it gets painful, when it seems like you are making no progress. Motivation gets you started. Chu keeps you going. It is the loyalty to the promise you made to yourself 10 years ago. It is the refusal to betray your own potential. Musashi devoted his entire life, every breathing second, to the sword. He did not dabble. He did not have a backup plan. He was loyal to his purpose until his final breath. You live in a world of infinite distraction, A world that begs you to be disloyal to your goals. Watch this, buy that, click here. Chu is the blinders you put on to ignore the noise. It is the fanaticism required to be great. You must pledge allegiance to your own future. You must decide that you will not abandon the mission, no matter how cold the winter gets. The transformation of Miyamoto Musashi from a violent animal into a philosopher warrior was not a miracle. It was a deliberate, painful, daily application of these 7 virtues. He used them to carve away everything in his mind that was weak, fearful, or unnecessary, until only the steel remained. You have the same raw material. You have the same capacity for chaos, and the same capacity for order. The virtues are the tools. The mind is the marble. You are the sculptor. But a sculptor who never strikes the chisel is just a daydreamer standing in front of a rock. You must strike. You must apply these things today. Not tomorrow. Today. Here is your directive. You are going to leave this video, and you are going to pick one area of your life where you have been lacking virtue. Maybe you have lacked the GI to make a decision. Maybe you have lacked the Makoto to be honest about your addiction. Maybe you have lacked the Chu to stick to your workout plan. You are going to take that one area, and you are going to apply the samurai mindset to it immediately. You are going to attack it with the ferocity of a duel. And I want you to subscribe to this channel, because the war against the self is not won in a single battle. It is a lifelong campaign, and you need allies. We are those allies. Hit the bell. Commit to the code. Become the master of your own mind, or remain a slave to your own impulses. The choice is yours. The sword is in your hand. Cut.